organizations or parcels, I just want to get clarity there, that were greater than 3 acres. I believe that was correct number 45, but I can't remember if it was organizations or parcels. I just want to.
That was parcels.
Parcels.
So of the total number of parcels that the assessor's site identifies as faith-owned in the city, there were a total of 260 qualifying parcels. 45 of those 260 were over 3 acres and would qualify for the mandatory version.
Are you able to, Mark, provide us with a list of who the owners of those 45 parcels are? That would be great. I really appreciate that. And then also on that topic, the interests. Have we started those conversations? I know Reverend Irby, and I'm sure he's already on it, but what has the conversations looked like with some of these faith-based partners? Because I'm sure some of them have questions, about leasing versus selling. Some of them don't want to do multifamily housing. They may want to do a triplex or a duplex or a quad. I don't know. I just want to know about approximately, and you don't have to give me names, how many churches are ready to just come to that phase 1 meeting in 90 days and put the shovel in the ground, hopefully soon.
I mean, I can only speak to, the conversations I've had with parties interested in utilizing YIGB to develop housing. And as I mentioned, virtually all of my conversations begin with either a developer or a real estate broker. It's rarely, I'm not sure if I've ever had the faith partner initiate the conversation so far. I think that's just a sign that this training is needed. Faith partners who many probably haven't even heard that this is out there yet or understand what it means for potentially for them. And then they certainly don't likely have experience in housing development and so on. So, the hunters are already out there, and I don't mean to paint them in a bad light. There's a lot of good developers looking to use this to do great things in the community and partner in a responsible way with the faith community to live out their mission, if you will, if they have that opportunity. But it's important that the faith community be educated and trained, hopefully prior to entering into an agreement. So far, my conversations have been pretty much solely with developers and real estate brokers who are, in some cases, talking to faith partners, but not always. A lot of them are just trying to figure out themselves what's this process, when we find a partner in a property, how do we go about pursuing this?
So have we as a city approached any faith-based partners to gauge their interest and to see who might be willing to start?
I have not approached them. They have approached me, as well as Reverend Irby. And I think that is what prompted us to expedite moving forward with this training, because that, again, is not their primary line of work. And we wanted to make sure that, and I'm not an expert in housing development of this magnitude, of course, but we wanted to make sure that we were able to bring the subject matter experts to them to get those questions answered. And I think we've landed in a pretty good place to be able to help them out. So yes, we have not reached out because we wanted to make sure that we had things lined up timely. And it would be unfair to promise something and we did not have our schedule already identified. So we're in a better place now to start those conversations and have additional marketing and outreach. And again, that's because of Reverend Irby's many years in the ministry will add a lot of value to that effort.
I just want to close by, again, thanking you all and offering my support. I already have at least a dozen churches that are ready to start working. Now, are they able? I don't know. That's where you all as the experts, especially you, Mark, will come and play to help educate them, because I don't think it's too soon to start educating, too soon to start that conversation and just laying the foundation, YIGB 101, are you prepared, are you ready? A lot of folks don't understand the intricacies of denominations, going through the Methodist Church, the AME Church, having to go before the boards and, getting the the Catholic diocese, approval, like that is a complicated process. And the longer we wait, then the longer the process is drawn out. So I just want to make sure, again, if we can start conversations, just conversations and educating them on this is going to take some time. Let's be realistic. Kind of setting a realistic parameter here, I think it'll be beneficial to all of us because, as you said, they're ready, but we just want to make sure they understand all the work that's required. So thank you so much, Chair.
And Chair, if I may, just want the definition that the statute references, religious institution means any church, synagogue, or established physical place for worship at which nonprofit religious services and activities are regularly conducted and carried on. So that is the term. And talking with the bill sponsor, this is something she thought about a lot. I don't know if everybody knows, one of the largest private landowners in the state of Florida is the Mormon Church. And that's not a critique of them, but the intention was not to create huge 100-acre swaths of land that was owned by one church. That contiguous parcel and house of worship is very intentional language to make sure that this is truly a cohesive faith community.
And I'm glad you brought that up. The Church of Jesus Christ of Latter-day Saints, they own multiple parcels of land across this city.
Yeah.
And I think, again, they may be a church that we haven't considered approaching. And I want us to make sure we're having conversations with all religious partners. So thank you so much, Chair.
Councilmember Harding, you have anything?
I'm good. I appreciate the work. Thank you very much.
Okay. I'll wrap us up quickly. I have two things I want to mention. I guess this might be a little ahead of ourselves, but have y'all envisioned what the process would look like for, say, if a church makes an agreement with a developer, is working on an agreement with the developer, they're going to have to talk to your department, right, Mark? Before we do anything. So concerns around exploitation, maybe bad deals for a religious institution, you'll have eyes on it pretty quickly, I'm assuming.
Yeah, I mean, we wouldn't have any control over a developer and a faith partner.
Of course.
Entering into some kind of an agreement outside of the city. However, any project that's proposed, would have to be submitted to the city for site plan approval and ultimately for permitting. So obviously the project, we would first have to approve it as a qualified YIGB project under all the things you heard here. And then once that's the case, really both versions, our local optional version and the mandatory version, what it really does is says, if you qualify for the basic criteria as a YIGB site, then your project falls under Live Local Act. And in the case of the mandatory version, it says that they would have to dedicate 40% of the units at 120 AMI or below, and they would get the benefits under Live Local Act on density, height, et cetera. Under our version, they can utilize both the Live Local Act or our Chapter 17.5 pathway. And technically, they could do that under the mandatory version as well, which has some different parameters and some greater flexibility. So bottom line is, we'd first approve them that they are qualified under YIGB, then we would look at their site plan and make sure that that can be approved based on what they're proposing, and ultimately, they'd have to, get their permitting and stuff before anything could be built.
Okay, I guess I was asking that so that I could get some sort of understanding of what's possible as to if something was brought to you all and there was red flags. Maybe it did qualify, but there's red flags around the relationship between the church and the developer. I'm not sure that we have to hash that out today, but I'm assuming you would keep it in mind, and there'd be something there that could at least let you advise organizations as to what standards are, what a standard kind of agreement looks like, is what I would say, just so that there's some sort of backing.
Yeah.
But we don't have to get into it. We're out of time today. The last thing I'll say is, you mentioned it. You looked at all these parcels that could potentially qualify. You could give us the names of the landowners and whatnot. And so I just want to encourage y'all to actively reach out to them as this process goes on, like the education process goes on. Especially those larger landowners, actively reach out to them and tell them, this is what we have going on. And then, any possible way you can send a letter or something to all of the landowners that this impacts, to do that, because we know who this is impacting, and so there's no reason for us to not directly reach out to them. So that's what I wanted to encourage.
That is a part of our strategy moving forward. Now we have an agreement with our consultant. We're able now to actively market to every property owner within the parameters of the city of St. Petersburg to notify them of our plan.
Perfect. Wonderful. Thank you all so much. I'm glad we're able to have this conversation. I'm not sure what it looks like going forward is what I'll say right now. But I think that based off of the language in the new business item, I'll go back and look at it, decide if maybe we can keep it, and so that after this contract's been executed, we can have another conversation about how it's gone. If it's appropriate, I'll do that. If not, then we can put in a new item later on. But I'm really grateful for it, and I look forward to having conversations in the future about this topic as well.
Thank you.
All right.
Vice Chair Foot, if I may quickly, so 1389, would be the new mandatory provision of YIGB, which is part of Live Local 4.0. It is not become law yet. I don't know, Mr. Thompson. Yeah.
Should have said that,
Yeah,
yes.
so there is a slim
Yes.
possibility that may not go forward and become law. You probably know more about your ear to the ground about what's going on with that. There's been no motion on it since mid-March, has not been transmitted to the governor. But just as a heads up, that will not affect the optional provision that the city has already put into its code.
Wonderful. Thank you for that clarification. Anything else for the good of the order? All right. We'll call today's Housing, Land Use, and Transportation Committee adjourned. Thank you all.
Thank you, Chair.
We have adjourned TV, thank you.
Thanks, guys.
Move it, body, body, move it, baby. Move it, body.
Good morning, everyone. Welcome to the Public Services and Infrastructure Committee meeting of May 14th, 2026. Clerk, can I please have a roll call?
Hanowitz.
Here.
Harding. Here. Floyd. Here. Gertis. Here.
We have an agenda before us. I'll entertain a motion for approval.
Move approval.
All in favor?
Aye.
We have the April 23rd, 2026 minutes. I'll entertain a motion for approval.
Move approval.
All in favor?
Aye.
Okay, we have a couple of items this morning. We're going to start off with a discussion on the general obligation bond communications plan. We have our Public Works Administrator, Claude Tankersley, here, and we have Carrie O'Brien, our Marketing Director, also here. Claude, I'll let you start us off.
Thank you, Madam Chair. I appreciate it. So the first part of this presentation will be done by Carrie O'Brien, our Marketing Director, as well as Sam Wells. Sam Wells is with S.E. Wells Communications, and he is a consultant we brought on board to help us put together our communications plan. And Sam helped another community, the community of Virginia Beach, Virginia, who did something almost exactly like what we're proposing. They did a geo bond for flooding issues for approximately $600 million. That he helped them go through their process, and theirs passed with a significant majority. So we brought him on to help us out, and we can learn some lessons with him. So the two of them are going to walk you through the communications plan, and I'll go ahead and turn it over to you.
Yeah, thank you so much, Claude. I'm very excited to be working with Sam and his depth of knowledge. We've been meeting together for, 2 months now, at least, and on at least a weekly basis, if not more, and I've been very appreciative of the knowledge that he has shared and working together to help get the good word out about SPAR. So Sam, I think you're going to kind of kick it off and tell a little bit about your background and where we go from here.
All right, so thank you for that, and thank you for your time this morning, committee members and Madam Chair. Again, I'm Sam Wells. I'm with S.E. Wells Communications. I've been doing resilience work for some 20 plus years, mostly around sustainability, the built environment, and more recently around coastal resilience. And as Claude mentioned, I worked along with the Jacobs engineering team on the City of Virginia Beach project. They were very similar. They also had some differences in terms of the constraints they had around communicating about their bond or their proposed bond at the time. But it was a great deal of success. I guess one area where this particular city might be ahead of Virginia Beach is in terms of, I guess, not awareness, but the acceptance of resiliency as something that the people would like to see accelerated, which we'll hear about a little bit more later in this presentation. The screen you're looking at right now is what we hope to achieve overall. And it's largely couched in the constraint of the communications constraints that we have under the state statute, 106.113. So everything you see on the goals side of it speaks to that. A successful plan is not about the passage of the bond. It's about making sure that we remain neutral, factual with the information that we're providing. Everything is legally compliant, and that we're extremely mitigating risk or protecting the city from any kind of risk. On the other side, the objectives are about, and I would add one word to these two, measurably. The objectives are about measurably raising awareness of SPAR, increasing people's understanding of SPAR, and then, of course, the funding approach or options that we have to make that program happen. Last but not least is the accountability and transparency part, which we've heard from this body and other stakeholders is something that's extremely important. It was also in Virginia Beach as well. So we'll be talking about how we'll make that a visible part of the communications plan as well. This part I'm going to let Carrie talk to when it comes a little bit later in the program. That's the new SPAR logo, and we'll talk about why that's important. Obviously, awareness of SPAR and recognition is key to the plan, so this is one part of that, and we'll get to that a little bit later. To inform our communications plan, we went through these 5 elements to make sure that the information that we're delivering is aligned with some of the knowledge gaps among the public. Started out with number 1, looking at other GO bonds in Florida that were operating under the Florida statute. Specifically, those were like Fort Myers, Key West, and South Miami. And all of them had bonds not quite to the level that this one is proposed, or the one at Virginia Beach, but we also added a large-scale stormwater bond and looked at some of the takeaways there. What we saw from the ones for Florida are just ways that they were able to manage through some of the legal constraints in terms of communicating neutrally to their publics and getting the information out. And we've taken some of those learnings that you'll see later. For Virginia Beach, it was also the education and outreach part, but we were specifically interested in some of the ways that they were able to highlight transparency and accountability once the bond had passed, because it too was very important for the public to sign on if they knew that was the case. Thirdly, economic impacts. This goes to one of the messages you'll see later on also, where it's about more than just the work that's happening in one neighborhood, on one block, or in one community. It's about the larger impacts to the city, and that's why we wanted to look at some of the economic impacts. I know that Claude's talked in the past about 2 reports that have offered some of that information to us, one by the Tampa Bay Partnership, the other by Florida Council on 100. And those give us things like cost-benefit analysis, things both at the regional level and the state level, but a lot of that information can also be translated down locally. And we've also been actively engaged in some of the qualitative conversations that would give information from some of the smaller committees specific to St. Petersburg, whether they're business districts, whether they're community organizations. I know the Kona was a part of that, the Chamber was a part of that, and other conversations where we're able to get some feedback about, local insights that would help all of those stakeholders. The bigger one, which you'll hear more about later, is the Polco survey, and that was specific to St. Pete. So we had that perspective as well, and that was to give us a benchmark of what do people know now about SPAR? What do they feel is their level of understanding? And there are some other questions that we'll cover off on that survey as well, but all of that was to set the tone for the type of communication that we want to deliver in this plan. On the left, you'll see some of the major findings from some of the earlier parts of the things that we talked about in terms of the research that was done. On the right is largely the Polco outcomes, but there's, again, more detail you'll get about each of those. But some of this, again, you've heard in some of the other meetings, or you've iterated yourself in terms of needing for visuals and maps and that sort of thing to explain some of the more complex concepts that are going on. And that was something that we saw in some of the other bond referendum programs as well. But the biggest one is leading with SPAR before even talking about bonds or funding mechanisms, that sort of thing. People really need to understand what it is before they can make a decision about it. So that was one of the other major ones. Of this list also, you've heard accountability. You'll keep hearing accountability. It's super important in terms of what the public's looking for, but also number 3, the cost and language. As you know, the bond question, at least says it was, unless it's changed, it does not mention SPAR. So we've got to make sure that we're clear about that and what the cost would be to the voters if they say yes, and as well as some of the other languages or language in some of the other studies that we've done. All of that set up what is going to be our strategy, and it repeats, so you'll see this as well, in terms of making sure people understand what SPAR is, making sure they know the reach is going beyond one area, understanding the cost, and we're going to keep hitting on accountability. It's about being faster, delivering the projects faster, more quickly in a strategic method, and SPAR is not new, SPAR is a subset of the CIP. This one is more of an eye chart. So it's called a message house, but it's basically giving you the top level message. Again, we need people to understand what SPAR is. So the top level message is talking about SPAR as an approach to resilience and delivering it more quickly, and then we're qualifying that with that smaller line beneath to make sure we're constantly talking about stormwater, wastewater, and water systems, because again, that's the language that's in the question, so we want to make sure that we're always tying back to that. Each of the pillars beneath that roof are, again, the key message areas that we've got to make sure all of our communications connect with. I've listed some sample, this is not an exhaustive list, but these are some sample key messages that fall under each of those pillars. And I know that an important one for SPAR recognition has to do with If you look at this second bullet, again, because it includes the key language, stormwater, wastewater, and water systems, but also that it's, again, a part of that already larger system that exists. Citywide impacts is one of the bigger ones that we want to make sure that all of our communication pieces are touching on. And there are some examples there. For me, the biggest one might be the second bullet, where we're talking about residents who may not personally experience flooding at home, could still be affected by some of these other things. And that's a common thing, and it's something that is also raised in the survey that you'll hear about.
So we were fortunate enough to partner with POCO, who does our annual community survey, and they were able to help us put together a survey to put out to our residents so we could get kind of a baseline of where we are right now as far as how people are feeling about flooding, about wastewater projects, about stormwater projects, and kind of where we go from here. And the results we thought were very encouraging that, as all of you are well aware, I mean, flooding is a common experience here in the city of St. Pete, that it's a part of our everyday lives. And many people have experienced flooding personally, that people have concerns about stormwater infrastructure and about wastewater infrastructure. And so, how do we take the mood of the public and use that to help inform this communications plan as it relates to SPAR? And there was a similar survey done in Virginia Beach around the same time period, and the results were somewhat different. Sam, I don't know if you want to...
Yeah, that's true. I think when we did a baseline survey in Virginia Beach, and we did two of them, one was with the city system, another one was outsourced to a marketing firm to do a statistical or statistically valid and reliable survey. And they showed that, I think before the communication campaign, there was only like 34% support for it. Afterwards, after the whole campaign and the election, it was nearly 73% voted yes on the program. And again, that was an outcome of the information was taken from the early survey to fill in the knowledge gaps throughout the communication campaign.
So with that being said, there isn't widespread awareness of SPAR and what SPAR is at this point. So we have, a lot of work in front of us to be able to familiarize the public with the concept of SPAR and what it means and how it's going to benefit them as a city. So, this just shows us that we need to get out and we need to be active in the community to spread that awareness. So it shows, too, that 62% of the respondents supported increasing the 5-year budget by $600 million, and 64% support using the GO bonds paid back through property taxes, and that 70% support the funding allocation plan. So, as Sam mentioned, in a much better spot than they were at Virginia Beach at the same time. So, our key takeaways, there needs to be much more awareness, and we need to highlight the citywide impacts. We need to clarify the project timing, and that we need to give people access to information. So that really helps us as we put together and we help implement this plan. So that's where my team comes into play with our partnership with Sam and with Public Works in general. So we've put together a SPAR webpage, and among the different elements of that is a video that we went out and we interviewed subjects throughout the community, as well as some business leaders, some city officials, to kind of help explain to people in one video what SPAR is. So that will help kind of anchor this particular website. We've got an extensive list of FAQs that people can use to get educated on this program, that we will have fact sheets and brochures that are already created and ready to be deployed. We are created infographics and some very useful maps that will show where the different projects are and the impact of the different projects. A communications toolkit, which is really important for this. So we will build all this, and it will be housed on this website so that we can kind of take a teach the teacher type of approach, where we're not just going out into the community and giving our message. we're training others in the community to help be our advocates on this issue, so that they'll have access to all of this information, all these presentations, so that they can go out into the community and kind of be our voices and talk to people and really be our advocates. So to that end, we'll also have the presentation request form, so that if people do want to have somebody come speak to their neighborhood group, their leadership group, whomever, that there's going to be a vehicle for that. And then also a link to another webpage that we created that will kind of explain what exactly a general obligation bond is.
If I can just add a little bit back to the communication toolkit, I'll just say, I know that we have it out there for people who do want to, and I'm using this in air quotes, advocate, because we know advocacy is not a part of this program and it can't be. But we've had requests from people who want information that they can then share with their stakeholders. And so this will be set up with neutral language, just like every other piece. This too will also have to go through legal review before we can post it to a website. So it's useful because, again, we know that people want to speak to their stakeholders, whether they're leading a neighborhood association, whether it's even council members who have to talk to their constituents. So it's talking points, it's a presentation, it's the whole package that can easily convey the information that we're sharing here. It also keeps everyone on the same page in terms of any kind of data or statistics.
And then I mentioned our video, which is in the final stages of production. And this video not only will help anchor the website, but also we're going to be able to use little snippets of it on social, so that smaller chunks, and so that they can be shareable and people can use them to help educate their friends and neighbors on what SPAR is, and can also be repurposed to be used at different meetings. And then this is going to be our GeoBond webpage that has a brochure. It'll have more information on what a GeoBond is. It's written in plain language so that people can actually understand what it is that they're going to be voting on, and an estimated tax impact, which we feel is really important to help people get educated on what, the benefits are of a GeoBond. Then we've got all these publications that will all be available digitally as well as in print versions, so that they can be downloaded and used. We've got brochures, we've got postcards, we've got project signage, we've got digital displays. And as Sam mentioned earlier, we've developed this SPAR logo. And our design team was very intentional with the way that this was put together. We wanted it to definitely put forward that this is all about flooding. That water droplet is meant to signify that this is going to be something that is going to bring relief to everyday citizens because it targets flooding. And that water bond is that drop is very reminiscent of the name of the campaign that Sam helped lead, which was called The Ripple Effect, that was really effective. So, these publications will be out there. In addition, we're working very closely with Sam Becker, our public information officer, to make sure that the message is getting out to the local media so that they can also help spread the word about SPAR. So in addition, we're also talking with Shelley Lose from Community Engagement about setting up different community engagement meetings so that we can get in front of community leaders and answer their questions so that they can go out and talk to people and help us spread the message and really be our voices in the community. And then
this is just once the bond language has been fully adopted and we're more limited in the things that we can do externally, these are some of those things that can be done. That's the factual reporting in terms of city actions. It's posting factual information to the web page. It's the printed materials that we can also post, and hosting public forums, and of course responding to any inquiries. So there are some areas that we can still do, but it's much more limited.
So, Madam Chair, I'd like to find out, would you like to pause here to talk a little bit more with this team, or would you like us to move forward with the representative project?
I think it's probably appropriate to see if council members have any questions regarding what we've spoken about at this point. And if there isn't, that means that you don't have to worry about Councilmember Gertis.
Thank you, Madam Chair. I don't know that I have any questions. This was laid out really well. I appreciate it. Thank you for the presentation. I was interested with some of the data, but I won't go down that because I know we've got still lots to talk about. But I was really happy to see the Polco, so thank you for doing that. And I'm assuming we'll probably do that a couple of times. My guess, we'll try to see the needle move.
Yeah.
Okay, cool. So I think it would be helpful to like know when we're gonna do that, just so we're aware. Because that way, if we're at a neighborhood meeting, we can help share, like, hey, be aware. We can ask, are you seeing it from our neighborhood? So it would be helpful from my perspective to know when those are gonna go out. The only other thing is, can we go to slide, I think it's page 16 or slide, yeah, 16, please. I love the project signage. And TDC does this really well, From Visitors with Love. I think we should be doing this on every single resilience project. Like, we should let people know that when we're in the ground and it's a resiliency project, that's what it's doing. And so, because we're gonna get less emails about you're ripping up the ground, and because they're gonna be happy that we're trying to move the needle for them. And so, I like all of this in general, but just specifically, Claude, I think we should really be thinking about doing this in general on any project that's gonna affect resiliency in St. Petersburg. I think this goes a really long way for our people to know that we're trying.
Yep.
Yeah, like this is a specific project in your area to try to help you. I think that's really important.
Thank you.
And so I really like that, and I can't wait to see those implemented. So that's really all I had. Just a little bit of feedback. So thank you so much for this portion of the presentation.
Thank you,
Thanks, Chair.
Thank you, Councilmember Driscoll.
Thank you. So one of the projects that falls under this category that's already underway is the Basin C project and the Salt Creek Pump Station project. There was a community meeting or open house that was held last week in the evening, and I was very happy Brej and staff were there. But there was, I got some comments from residents who were concerned because the only ways that they knew that that was even taking place was through my newsletter and some signs that were put out, like yard sign type signs. There was nothing on the website. There was nothing sent out. We didn't get press release. We didn't get, in the city. I had to keep checking to see if it had been canceled for some reason. So it was, thankfully, there was attendance there. I can't imagine how many more people would have been there had they known about it. But there was one neighborhood that decided to get the word out, and then Kona did their own thing to get the word out. And so here we have residents doing the work that should be done here. Because I'm giving this example because this type of communication should already be in place for these things. And, I'm wondering what to expect because I know what I saw that happened for last week's meeting. So tell me about that and why that should not be looked at as an example.
I'll start off, but may I turn behind me just to see if we have Brajesh in the room, because his team is the one that always puts together communications notes. So I'll speak as well as I can on his behalf. So whenever we have a project meeting, we have a long list of folks that we contact about that project meeting. Many times the project meeting will involve just a single neighborhood, so it's easy, and what we will do is notify that specific neighborhood that we have the upcoming project meeting, and I know we've had several of them this year. This one was a little bit unusual in that it was multiple neighborhoods, and so we found that following our normal procedures, we didn't get the word out as well as we needed to or wanted to. So one change we've already made is to add Kona as an organization to the announcement list, and then we're open to any other suggestions on that. But we have made that change already.
Okay. I had been told that at least an email had gone out to Kona and the relevant neighborhoods. And there's most of them are in my district.
Right.
So when I think each project needs to be handled like that one, with not just one neighborhood, but take that full view of it. My concern is that the people, should this move forward, this shows that there's a lot of work to do to help raise awareness. And I really want to have the confidence that that's going to happen. These projects are so important. I see one that is going, it's at Shore Acres, I think next week or the week after. And it's everywhere. Like, I saw it. It's not even in my district, and I know about it. We have to make sure all residents, all neighborhoods are seen as important to communicate with. It's the only way we're going to get this done. And I really hope to see the same attention given to neighborhoods in my district that have seemed to have been given to neighborhoods in another district for another project.
Message received. Thank you.
Thank you.
Thanks. So, yes, go ahead.
I'll just real
Vice Chair.
quick, sorry, I'll just real quick say, this all looks really good, very well put together, not a surprise based off of the background and information we've been given. Last time we had this conversation, we had a map shown to us that was stormwater projects. I was like, hey, make sure we have like different layers to this so we can show everyone. I'm just reiterating that. It does sound like you mentioned that when you said what will be on the website. And the description that I saw, I think it was in the survey, about 42, 16, 42. I don't know if I didn't key into that before, but I keyed into it this time, and I think that is something that we should continue to spread awareness on, because like I said, I think this has had a lot of focus on stormwater, which I like and care about a lot, but there's other things in there as well. And wastewater, I think, is really impactful to a lot of people. So it sounds like y'all are on that path, but I just wanted to reiterate my concerns there. I'll leave it there. Thank you.
Thank you. Well, you've got great feedback. I will say, look, it's election season, as many of us know, and if there are new candidates out there and they're entering the race now, they got to get their message out real quick, right? Because people don't know about it, right? Because November is coming up. So you know what that means. That means a very robust campaign. Like, good start. I agree with Councilmember Gertis. You know, the signage is great, and if it says flooding relief project, it should say, you know, sewage relief, you know, or wastewater, whatever it is that those projects are. I think that's great. I love the drop. Because it's not just stormwater, right? It's all our water systems, and I think that's extremely important. I'm not surprised about the survey results. I've had this conversation in other meetings where there was a lot of conversation about stormwater, and the reality is, in my district, I don't get a lot of flooding, but I get a lot of concerns about other things, and half of our city floods and half of it doesn't. And if you want this to pass, you need everybody. So I think it's clear from the survey results. I like that we're starting there, but I want the momentum, as council members have said. It needs to be robust. I also went to a neighborhood meeting. They didn't know much about SPAR. I didn't want to talk a lot about it because I wanted the message to be cohesive, because I knew you were working on it. And the other important thing about the website, we'll talk about that, there should be definitely a lot of information when people go in there in terms of dashboards or however it is you organize the information. Because there are other, as you're aware, other municipalities that do this, And they have extremely robust sites that you can get a lot of information on. So that's all I have to say. Go on.
Chair, can I?
Yeah, oh yeah,
I'm sorry,
Councilmember
just-
Curtis.
Thank you very much, Chair. I'm sorry. The only other thing, and Chair's comments triggered this, I would have the QR code on every single one of them.
Oh, yeah.
Yeah. Let's make sure we don't forget that on anything that's going to be public facing, because we want them on the website, and the easiest way to get them there is that QR code. So let's please and thank you. That's all I had.
And at some point, because I know legal, there was a memo that went out from legal in terms of the things we could do. I don't want to spend a ton of time on it, but just in terms of communications, if you want, what you want people to know about what we're supposed to do in communications.
Thank you, Chair. As the communications team has mentioned, there's a Florida statute 106-113 that was changed in 2022 to eliminate the city's ability to send to an elector communication about a ballot question, even a purely factual one, unless certain exemptions apply. So this is early in the process. We're reviewing. This is a very fact-specific exercise, so we're reviewing all of these things as they're proposed through that lens. And certainly signage is something that is more on the, it's not being sent to any particular party. This is definitely the kind of thing we think we're going to be able to do. But with all of this, because this is a campaign finance statute, it's in Chapter 106 of the Florida statutes, the Florida Election Commission can impose fines. If you're using public funds for something that you're not supposed to use them for, it's also something that you could be potentially removed from office for. So the stakes are high here, and we're really trying to give everybody the information they need to avoid being in that position. And it's much easier to avoid it than to try to get out of it. And so we're happy to assist in this process. But just last night, Jackie and I were talking about the signage issue because we know that it's something Councilmember Driscoll mentioned at an earlier meeting. So we're happy to support those discussions.
Great. So word to the wise. Anybody that's talking about general obligation bond or sending a newsletter or writing something, consult your attorney. Okay.
And so,
Claude.
Madam Chair, if I may also just, please correct me if I'm wrong, Brett, but that's one of the reasons why we are making a differentiation between SPAR and the GO bond.
Okay.
Because we're not voting on SPAR, but we will be voting on the GO bond.
Thank you.
Chair.
Yes, hold on a second.
Yes.
Yeah, I mean, and yes, that is one of the factors among many. If I could reduce it to that, my job would be much easier. But that's just one of the contextual factors that we would factor in when evaluating whether whether a communication is applicable, the statute is applicable in the first place, and then if it is, does one of the exemptions apply? So I just wanted to make that clear.
This is a perfect real-world example of the difference of the brain between an engineer who lives in a black and white world and the attorney who lives in a gray world.
Thank you, Madam Chair.
You're welcome.
All right, so now we're going to talk about representative projects. We had talked about this at the last meeting. We're going to talk about it a little bit more again. In part, due to the feedback we had received about the map that showed the stars and how that might not be good enough, that could be confusing, and it might not be very effective. And so we took the comments about trying to find ways to layer information, and so we've started that process. We haven't finished it, but we've started it. And so I wanted to share with you what we've come up with so far, again, to get some feedback. And so what we're going to do is we're going to again reiterate that the SPAR program itself, as well as the funding that we're seeking from the GO bond, both would support stormwater, wastewater, and drinking water. And so I'm going to start with some representative stormwater projects, and I have Roger Johnson here with us. Roger, as you guys know, is our engineering design manager for stormwater, all things stormwater. And he and his team have been working hard to come up with not only the projects that we are moving forward with SPAR, but to understand the impact of those projects and to find a way to quantitatively evaluate and prioritize those projects on a variety of different criteria. And so what we're going to be going through is 3 different types of stormwater projects. The first one we're going to be talking about is one that is a very localized project that is based off of rainfall only. That is a project that would affect a neighborhood that sees regular stormwater flooding, not just on a 100-year storm or a 10-year storm, but on a regular basis where they have their streets are flooded. So that'll be the first one we talk about. The second one we talk about will be a project that looks at an area that acts as a bowl and will hold the water, and so therefore we need to find a way to get the water out more quickly. And then the third one, we'll talk about a project that is related to sunny day flooding, tidal flooding, storm surge, as well as rainfall flooding. So just wanted to give that preamble there for you. So Roger, if you don't mind, if you'd walk us through this particular representative project.
Thank you. So as Claude mentioned, there's 3 types of projects in generality. This one is,
Could you?
so not to overly simplify it, but conveyance improvement examples, these type of projects basically make the pipes bigger. There are systems in the city right now that have either small pipes or they were originally designed without a subsurface stormwater system. So this type of project would basically make the pipes bigger, get the water out faster, or if there's no subsurface stormwater system currently, it would be the installation of one of those. Not to overly simplify it, but the type of project in this category would be make the conveyance larger to get the water out faster.
And one of the reasons we've included in these representative projects a mix of types of projects is that some of these projects, as this one, are relatively straightforward. We have confidence in what the proposed solution would be, and it wouldn't take much for us to move this project forward and get it executed and done quickly, because that's part of the SPAR process, is getting things done quickly. And so that's why we do include some projects like this in the overall mix.
So wet weather infrastructure examples, I mean, we can go to Hurricane Milton as an example. This specific area saw catastrophic challenges during Hurricane Milton in an area that is in FEMA's flood zone X. I mean, we've talked about it several times. Essentially, the challenge we're faced here with is similar to many areas in the city. If y'all are familiar with our stormwater floodplains, it's the pink map, and you know, I say this often, it's a crude way of doing it, but if you squint your eyes when you're looking at that map, you'll see little pockets of pink in the middle of the city that are kind of hydraulically disconnected from an outfall. Perfect example here is Emerald Lake. It's a low bowl area. It collects water and has a very, very, very long way to go out. You know, essentially think about this as a bathtub, and the drain is really small and very long. So you fill up that bathtub and you pull the plug, it takes a long time for that bathtub to empty. So essentially we're looking at options in these categories of projects as to how to deal with areas that have limited hydraulic connectivity to get the water out faster. This isn't just a means of making the pipes bigger, because it's so far from a discharge point that might not be the most feasible solution. So we're trying to get creative. Some of the potential options are a stormwater injection well, in a sense. We're working right now on some feasibility studies for permitting stormwater injection wells in this side of Florida. This is a prime candidate for one of those projects because you already have a collection area that the water gets to anyway, so you could feed that pump, treat the water, and potentially, you know, relieve some of that. So that's the type of project we're looking at under this type of scenario. Options, feasibility, I mean, that's the next step, but these are the types of projects that we'd see under this category. So, coastal protection examples, you know, we can use, you name it, Etta, Adelia, Helene. We can't protect to some of the levels that we would like to, just because Mother Nature has her own plan sometimes. These categories of projects are going to put us in a better position for that tidal interaction that we have during events. Specifically, if we look at Clam Bayou, we look at Salt Creek, we look at, you know, Riviera Bay, Shore Acres. My list can go on. The coastal challenges we see during tidal interaction events. It's not as simple as rain falling from the ground and trying to get it out quickly. These are larger scale tidal protection projects, of which feasibility analyses are underway right now to really understand, okay, what is it going to take and what does that level of service look like? You know, we'll use Riviera Bay as an example. Where could we put a tidal gate to keep a tide to a certain level to help protect some of those homes? You know, I think 4 feet of tide is when we start to see some structure damage in the city in various locations. So what could we do in those areas to help protect those communities to that level of service? So that's kind of the third facet of this program and orientation of projects to really protect us to the best practical means for that tidal interaction that we see in our system.
Thank you, Roger. You've probably noticed on these slides some information that we're hoping will be useful. One is we couldn't get it completely away from the stars, but that's just to help orient people as to where we're talking about. But then we show the map, and this map shows, like in particular this map, you know, the blue area are the areas that would be impacted with a, what is that, what storm, what elevation was that? Do you remember? Was it 6 or 7 feet?
I think this was drawn at 6 feet.
6 feet? Mm-hmm. And so this would be an area that would be impacted by a 6-foot tide. We have information on here as to what we are attempting